So I'm kind of spoiled for choice when it comes to picking up laptops to just use for daily use. But not every machine that I have is really well tailored for high power sort of either compiling or video editing specifically, photo editing, etc. use. Gaming use for that matter, for the little bit that I do play video games. So I decided to remedy this by purchasing a machine on eBay. This is a Dell M4700 workstation grade laptop. You'll see more of it in a little minute. In a minute, this will also be a simultaneous review of eBay user Vertex PC from Beaufort, Georgia, and we are going to cut this bad boy open and see what we have inside. Probably edit a lot of this, but we shall see. Now, this was shipped free of charge from Vertex PC via FedEx, ground, as you might be able to tell from the state of the packaging. It took about a week to get here. Please pardon the shoddy camera. So it's, I guess I may as well, while I'm doing this, sort of explain why I'm buying a 3-year-old laptop for a considerable amount of money on eBay. At my workplace, they have many different types of machines. For a while, they were... Okay, well, let's see how much of this survived. I definitely hear the power supply banging around a lot. They have a lot of different types of machines there. Developer machines and regular user machines. So we had a couple of special order. Jesus Lord, look at the size of that. That is an Anker 20,000 watt power supply, or milliamp hour battery bank. That is considerable. 90 watts, I believe, is that. Where was I going with that? We have developer machines at work. We have regular user machines, sort of ultrabook class machines. And I saw that we had a couple of these special ordered Dell Precision M4700s, and I took a look at it. I was actually wiping it to return it back to Dell out of lease, and I was like, dang, this is pretty cool. And I think you'll see why once I get into this machine if you're not familiar with the Dell Precision line. So it is 3 years old. It weighs a mother-loving ton. So this is interesting. I've never seen this type of laptop securing box, but this actually makes a lot of sense. So you actually just strap it to the inside of this piece of cardboard. Looks like double-layered piece of cardboard, maybe. Maybe at one point it was somewhat supported. An interesting way of packaging a laptop. I've never seen this type of packaging. Usually I'm more familiar with the sort of pre-cut out shaped pieces of styrofoam. I imagine that costs a lot more than this. So interesting. So this is a used machine. Not much backstory was on the seller's webpage, on the seller's listing for this item. He had about 20 of them, I believe, for sale. He had 2 price points. Not going to say the price point, but there was one that was approximately I believe it was just listed $10 more than the others. So you can see the sort of shadow of what must have been an asset tag at some point. That might come off with some alcohol. I don't expect a perfect machine. I was just hoping for a pretty nice one for the amount I paid. There's a little bit of scarring there. This is sort of an overview, so it's got this little release button to release the lid. We'll see if there's any battery in this thing. A lot of use on the DisplayPort cable. I will not be using that very frequently nowadays, but it'll look like I did. Hard drive bay. And of course, change the hard drive. There is a M.2 SSD slot in there as well. On the back, you can see dual vents. I believe that it is designed. Oh, didn't know about that. That's interesting. I'll have to go back over there. I probably should have made an effort to cover over the service tag. But, yeah, so there's dual vents, dual fans there. I was not aware of that refurbish thing. I might want to look back and make sure that was actually on the listing. So, yeah, about 7 pounds. So it's an i7 3860 UG or something like that. Not exactly familiar with the Ivy Bridge mobile CPUs that were available at that time. So let's go ahead and pop this open. Take a look. Okay, this will be interesting. Thank you. Congratulations on the purchase of a high-quality off-lease purchase from DellRefurbished.com. Interesting. I wonder if they're allowed to use the Dell logo or if they've been actually certified by Dell. I haven't looked into that at all. None of this information was posted on Vertex PC's website, though of course I understand he's got thousands of items for sale, and I'm sure he's got some form fill thing that he's used to, or they are used to filling out. Let's take a look at the wear on this machine. So at this spec, this has a K2000M NVIDIA Quadro graphics card inside it, 2 gigabytes of DDR3 memory, allocated specifically for the graphics card, of course. Has 16 gigabytes of DDR3 system RAM. I don't remember the speed. So it looks lightly used as far as I'm concerned. A little bit of wear on the trackpad. I'm not a particular fan of the Dell track point style pointing device in the keyboard. I'll have to see if I can get used to that. But as far as the design of the keyboard is flush, so it is completely flat there. And it's sort of, recessed into the body, the chassis of the machine. So when you type, it sinks into the computer, into the chassis a little bit. Vertex PC has preloaded this with Windows 7 Professional. We will see whether it is activated. I imagine it is. So slightly dusty keyboard. Pardon the lack of focus. There we go. I will see how clean this machine is, whether it was out of lease and then cleaned up, or if, what was the name of that company? Or if Genco Refurbishing, not really clean these up, just make sure that the internals are all happy and to Dell's specifications, and just sell them back. So I'll be interested in learning more about Vertex PC. I probably should have done that more before I did that. So it's a little bit of crud on the keyboard, hand salsa as UXW Bill calls it. I think it's more appropriate than the term I use to describe it, or at least more politically correct, or PG. So it does have a backlit keyboard with, I believe, 3 levels of backlight. We'll see. Interested to see if there's any battery life in it, so I think I'll just go ahead. It will definitely need to be cleaned. I will fingerprint reader, of course. I will go ahead and start the machine up. Looks like we got a little bit of battery. And I want to take a listen to that optical drive because that did not sound too healthy. So, starting Windows, of course, and as I mentioned, Windows 7 Professional. 500 gigabyte spindle drive in there. I sort of ignored the side of this thing. Anyway, it's got 2 USB 2 on the side, one 1394 Firewire 400. Microphone input, headphone output, and slot loading optical drive, SD card reader, hard drive activity light. I apologize for not getting a better angle of this. Battery warning status, I'd imagine. So it looks like they just imaged this thing and then shoved it right out the door because it's doing initial check of video performance. This will be interesting. And a power indicator light. And I will definitely be checking that slot loading drive as soon as possible. I want to make sure that I got a healthy one. And Vertex PC has a 30-day return policy. I haven't looked into the details of that, of course. I just randomly spent $500 on a laptop. Okay, this is interesting. Looks like they used a Dell image. So I wonder if they just did send this right back from the refurbisher and then shipped it right out to me, the end user. Or I guess I should say the second end user. I will go ahead and I remember him saying that, or I shouldn't say him. I remember the posting saying that they used a like a factory partition or something like that to restore. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the setup, see what of the hardware is immediately recognized, and then I think I will get to cleaning this thing, detailing it, because it is for the most part clean. It just looks like maybe some focus, please. Maybe some detritus and scalp flakes may have fallen onto there. So I will be looking at this. Is much better than a lot of the machines I see at work. Some of these things are just disgusting. So, out of lease machine, we will see once we get through the setup. It is, as I said, it is based off a hard drive. My plans were, if I like the machine, to go ahead and migrate it over to the SSD I've got in my Asus Q550LF laptop. I think I'll probably, so I've got a trip coming up. This is related. I'll probably, for the duration of this trip, I'm probably going to hold on to the hard drive. I'm just going to leave it in here, do all my work that I need to do on this trip, with the system configured as it is, as it came from Vertex PC, see if I like it, see if it's happy. I'll have that nice 30-day cushion. Yeah, so there's that recovery partition that I mentioned earlier. Other than this, like even the machine, oh my goodness, the machine name seems pretty standard. So yeah, I'm going to look into this a little bit, look at the system properties, open the control panel. Sorry, I was literally just reading off the top of that. Take a look at system properties, get specky on here, and see what I see. This feels a little bit wobbly. I wonder if they tighten that up correctly. I've had machines with wiggly hinges in the past, so I'm going to check with the one remaining Dell Precision M4700 at work and see if it feels as tight as that or as loose as that, because I do not want screws slowly stripping themselves as I've experienced in the past with old machines. But I guess that it's going to have to work because I do go on my trip very soon. In fact, I'm leaving midnight, so I guess I'm going to have to live with whatever they gave me. I guess some more details. It has a 1920 by 1080 matte display that is highly color calibrated, so this should be a very, very accurate monitor or a display. Calibrated by Dell, and I don't know whether that calibration is saved within a firmware chip somewhere, or if it was saved with an original hard drive. It could be that since this has been restored, that it doesn't have those initial settings. I'll have to see whatever toys they give you to play with that Dell might have for you. It looks like Intel HD graphics. So yeah, actually, you know, I'll just go ahead and start playing around on this. Okay. So it's recognizing its RAM, and I apologize. I used the wrong name of the processor. That's an Intel i7 3840QM CPU at 2.8 gigahertz. I believe. Actually, I should have gone into BIOS first of all, but I didn't foresee that bird and didn't think that far ahead. It's got a product ID, so it's an OEM install. Of course, it's a Dell. And I thought I saw the logo. We saw the logo when we started up, but maybe we don't see it now. Yeah, except for software, I think I'll be leaving this pretty much stock, and then if I end up returning this for some reason, I will of course wipe the drive and give it back. Device manager, let's see if anything stands out. Change hands. So everything appears to be there, so this is definitely like either a Dell image or a custom image. This does have a trusted platform module, so it is like an enterprise grade laptop. You can encrypt this, and I plan on encrypting this computer. So there it's recognized the Quadro K2000M. I think I'm going to run over to Dell's website. I wonder if this will open on Vertex PC's page, or maybe Dell. Or just MSN. No, it's Dell.com. Interesting. So I'll go ahead and do this. Not much of a plug because nobody really watches this YouTube channel. Yeah, it's so far it's very responsive. I'd imagine that, you know, being refurbished by to Dell's specifications. I mean, this laptop initially cost probably about $2,000. I got it for approximately $500. So I'm gonna go ahead and just. Well, I guess I'll just get just about everything that I'm used to. Well, no, I'll just get the basics for now. I'll get Chrome on there. No, I don't even need VLC. Yeah, and so basically I've got 6 hours until I catch my plane, and I've got about 6 hours to configure this thing to how I like it before I go on my trip, and I will be limited for internet. It'll be also interesting to see how long the battery lasts. So it looks like they gave it to me fully charged, and since it was in the mail for about a week, looks like it didn't drain over that time. You can install a second battery, apparently. I have to look into that. I've never seen that inside of one of these machines. And I'm sure it changes from high performance to balanced or power saving as soon as you unplug the power supply. Let me show you the details on that power supply as well, because it's kind of a beefy thing, as it is a power hungry machine. So there's some of that. You can pause it if you like, but somewhere on there it should say 90 watt. Or maybe it's 180. Is it 90 or 180? I don't recall. Well, you can read through that if you like. It might be 180. See there? 180. Okay. So I'm going to, actually I'm also curious which one of those fans are going the most. It's sitting at idle, it shouldn't be doing anything really. Now I believe this is a 4-core hyper-threaded CPU. Take a look up here. Yep, I think it's 4-core hyper-threaded. I'll go ahead and get specky on here and show you what it's like in a little bit. Just, explore it a little bit and tell you what I find. Right, here's another update. I believe we're about maybe 30 minutes in. So what I've noticed is that it seems to be idling at a somewhat high temperature. It seems to be bouncing between about 55 to about 65 degrees, which is higher than what I'd expect for a laptop, though I will say that this is a CPU that I'm not familiar with, and B, a workstation grade laptop that might have a completely balls to the wall CPU inside it. I have a version of Specky on this flash drive here that is a little outdated, about 3 years outdated, and it was showing a CPU temperature that was pretty high, and that sort of surprised me. So I grabbed Core Temp, which is another piece of software that I use occasionally, and it shows you the load and also that. So I think I'm gonna have to do a little bit of testing. I'm gonna have to really show this hardware. I'd say that it has an enthusiastic CPU cooling fan. I can hear it rev up rather quickly. And even further on, here's an even different look. It's gotten dark outside. So this is what the keyboard looks like illuminated, and of course it sort of goes dark after a little while. I've seen that on a few workstation machines before. Let me see. Oh, I just noticed this thing doesn't even have a camera on it. That's surprising. That's interesting that they actually have that as a feature. I wonder if some some do and some don't. I have never seen that on a laptop post 2006. Very cool. So yeah, as you can see, it's gone dark. Little, I'm not particularly concerned about this. I guess I know that I have very oily hands, so as you can see there, my palm print has already sort of gotten on there, but it's all just cosmetic stuff. I might get some wear here and there, but I guess it just means that it's a well-used and durable computer. What was I going to do? Oh yeah, here's my usual 9-night selections, and by the way, as soon as we run this is saying bye-bye to good performance from our hard drive. Unfortunately with 9-night, you don't really get to control what stuff starts up by default in the way that it works as a repository. It'll disable all the toolbars and BS that a lot of the software installs by default, but it doesn't necessarily stop it from auto-updating, which is something that I don't usually like to run, like especially iTunes by default. It usually has all the iTunes bullshit that installs alongside it that runs in startup and all that stuff. So here's a lot of the stuff that I get. 7-zip, obviously, I already installed it, but it'll double check that it's all updated. Audacity, FileZilla, Firefox. I've been sort of trying to migrate over to Firefox, but GIMP, I don't really know how to use it. I know how to use Photoshop much better than GIMP, but I don't currently have a version of Photoshop, and I don't feel like fucking around with the CS2 installers and all that garbage. I'm going to try to stay focused while I'm on this trip. Irfan View, LibreOffice, Notepad++, Putty, Revo 1 installer just because, Silverlight just because, maybe I can remember our home password for Netflix, Steam, that is going to be a big suck on startup, TeamViewer, because I'm a giant plebeian, the VLC, which again is just going to double check that it's installed, and Winderstat, which I'm very glad that they have on there. The only things that I'm kind of upset that they don't have on 9-night is what are those? The Piriform apps that are quasi freeware or whatever. Like you can pay for a license if you work in a company or whatever, or if you plan on using it in the enterprise. One thing I've noticed about 9-night is that if you run it on a company machine and you're using a domain controller, it will actually notice that and say, hey, we have 9-night for Active Directory. And in fact, we use that a little bit. Not so much nowadays, but interesting that actually notices that. And LibreOffice is the last thing. It'll probably be pretty big. I want to try some games on this thing a little bit, but I don't really have time. It's 9 p.m. and my flight is in 3 hours, so I really need to go ahead and bring this back upstairs and pack it up. I do want to check underneath. I want to see if I got the 65 watt hour or the 95 watt hour battery. Super cool if I got the 95 watt hour. But I don't believe we posted that in the ad. Another problem, I was hoping to use this on the plane. I mean, first, initially, I'm going to have to get some sleep on the plane because this is a red eye. But I'm kind of a big guy. I can't really use the laptop on a plane, and on Southwest sometimes I can because their seats are a little bit bigger. But I'm taking Alaska and then United, and United I know is just going to be hell, so maybe I just want to cram myself into a seat and try to get some shut-eye. But Alaska I haven't been on, at least in a very long time, so I'm not sure that I'll be able to get any work done on the way there, but I might just have to wait until I'm in Michigan, until I can, test the battery performance of this thing. So that's that. 9.8's going to install. I'm going to have to, manually go through that list and pick all the crap that I don't want running on startup, because, most of these things will be running on startup. I'm sure TeamViewer will, GIMP, or not GIMP. Actually, I guess not much of that stuff. TeamViewer should, I'm pretty sure, and Revo maybe? No, it's been a while. I'll have to double check and just make sure the startup items aren't completely clogged. Steam will for sure. Steam will, and I think Firefox is an automatic updater thing. Silverlight probably, yeah, so there's that. I think I'll probably stop filming tonight. In fact, the next clips you might see might be me in Michigan, so you might get a look at some of our family home in Michigan.